Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and I've got a very special guest. Now, as you know, we've been one of the few people covering this Linda CollinsSmith murder. Now, she was found with a gunshot wound. That's the details we knew. I talked about how they seemed to find her outside, wrapped up in a blanket. We now know someone has been charged, Rebecca Lynn O'Donnell, with her murder and apparently abusing a corpse. Now, what caught a lot of people's eyes was there was another state senator who had lost his life to a gunshot wound in rather short fashion, days apart from another, and there were rumors that she was trying to expose some kind of a trafficking ring. Well, Patrick Howley, who is the editor-in-chief over at Big League Politics, he tweeted out something really interesting and said he had confirmed this and that the third to last tweet she put out was one of his articles based in this and on NXIVM. Patrick?
Jason, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Very good. Thank you for coming.
It's always good to get the truth out. I love the show.
Oh, thank you very much, brother. So what is your take? What is the information here? Because now this is supposedly a close friend, a campaigner. She had some odd dealings with this woman's husband at some time. Like this guy was the executor of her estate. And had court dealings. I don't know what's going on here, but maybe you can shed some light on this.
Well, this history that she has with this woman obviously is something that they can use to establish motive on the part of this suspect. However, I have confirmed with multiple women in Arkansas that Linda CollinsSmith was working with them directly to try to expose human trafficking. There is a massive human trafficking problem in Arkansas, and we can get way more into the Clinton connections as this interview goes on. But there's a massive human trafficking problem in Arkansas, and we at Big League Politics spoke to 3 different women who were working with Linda CollinsSmith on exposing this, including one woman who actually found out that after the government seized her children, she found her children on the dark web being human trafficked.
Oh my
God.
Now,
this is the kind of information that she brought to Linda CollinsSmith shortly before her death. Linda CollinsSmith did, in fact, tweet out my article shortly before her death, which to me means that I have a duty, I have a responsibility to get to the bottom of this. Do I necessarily believe that this suspect who's in custody is the person who murdered her? I don't know at this time. I do know that Linda CollinsSmith was heavily involved in investigating human trafficking.
All right, well, that's big, big news. And the article you're talking about, I believe, is the Clinton ties Arkansas Democrat arrested for disturbing CP, worked with Hillary, met Bill. And I'm going to sum it up quick, but I want you to get into the nitty-gritty details. This person has been charged once with being in a chat room watching CP with others. Then also, I believe, abusing a 14-year-old boy, we're going to call it that, and worked with others, and has a long history of selling tickets and, campaigning for the Clintons.
Yes, Harold Moody was actually the communications director for the Arkansas Democratic Party during the 2016 election. So he was the one selling tickets at the Hillary Clinton fundraiser when she went to Arkansas. He was a Democrat Party official, and by all accounts was actually the person running the Arkansas Democratic Party, which is kind of a makeshift operation. Now, he was a youth counselor at Pulaski Youth Services, which, the head of this organization actually got an award from the Clinton Foundation. Okay, this Pulaski County Youth Services, worked with the Clinton Foundation, which set up a health initiative in Little Rock, Arkansas, in Pulaski County. Okay, so they've worked together. Now, this guy was caught in a chat room playing child pornography, and in fact actually said, he actually complained to some of the other users in the chat room, I'm not the jukebox at Waffle House, I don't play on demand. He said, I've heard of white privilege, but not perv privilege. So this is a very sick individual. Okay, now this person had met Bill Clinton, dating back years, was actually photographed with Hillary Clinton. I put that photograph up on bigleaguepolitics.com. So we know that Arkansas human trafficking is a massive problem. Now, Pulaski County Youth Services also experienced another case where one of their counselors was arrested for raping a 14-year-old boy. in a parked car. So, I mean, it's incredible to me that this organization still exists, let alone that the head of this organization is getting an award from the Clinton Foundation. But all of these things are coming together now, thanks to the NXIVM trial. And as we speak, the jury is now deliberating at Brooklyn Federal Court on all of the charges against Keith Raniere, the NXIVM cult leader, the Satanism, the Clinton connections, everything that has come out in this trial, which I have been covering every day. And the verdict is expected soon.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of those connections. I just showed what you were talking about. They are deliberating. They didn't even put up a case, the defense. They didn't call a witness. They just made closing arguments. I really think the fix is in on a lot of levels. We know that she put a $14.3 million legal fund with everybody that pled guilty. She's got a deal of 21, and when I say she, I mean Claire Bronfman, 21 to 72 months. If she gets 27 months, she can appeal that verdict. And if you look at this, you're talking Clinton connections. All the way back in 2007, the New York Post reported Hillary's $30,000 fans are her cult following. So what was going on? Well, court documents revealed in the indictment said that basically Claire Bronfman and Nancy Salzman had asked other members to contribute to her 2007, aka 2008 primary run in 2007. They did so to the max, and then they were going to be paid back. This is campaign finance fraud is what this is. And of course, it was for political favors. Hillary Clinton herself was mentored by Edgar Bronfman, by her own words. She gave a speech at his memorial service, and he was given, by the way, not just the Seagram's billionaire, he was involved in the entertainment industry, so was his son, and on top of that, he was given the American Medal of Freedom by Bill Clinton for his services as the head of the World Jewish Congress. These people are connected, sir.
Well, Claire Bronfman actually used a keylogger virus to obtain Hillary Clinton's emails through Edgar Bronfman, her father's emails with Hillary Clinton. So we know that Hillary Clinton's private server was breached by the NXIVM sex cult, and they stored her emails. We know that the NXIVM sex cult stored Chuck Schumer's financial records to use as blackmail against him. The New York Times confirmed that on Monday after I did a show about it on Sunday night on Patriot Soapbox. Chuck Schumer has been implicated in this. Kirsten Gillibrand, of course, implicated in this. Her father worked for the NXIVM sex cult, fell in love with Kirsten Gillibrand's stepmother, who also happens to be Kirsten Gillibrand's first cousin and her father's second cousin. Talk about bloodlines. Mm-hmm. They got married after spending time together at the NXIVM sex cult. So Doug Rutnick, who's Kirsten Gillibrand's father, was used as a broker between the NXIVM sex cult and Democratic politicians to do their bidding for them. This is a cult that was performing human experiments on children, including, teaching children 7 different languages every day with 7 different nannies, which completely, tortured the kids. They're basically dullards now. They can't speak.
And let me just interrupt you there. You're talking about the Rainbow Cultural Garden, which was this institution which was not all over the country. It was also in Mexico and in Europe as well. And Claire Bronfman, in these documents, you find out that they were taking these women who were not qualified to be teachers and were later used as sexual tools, basically, to get them visas. Basically, she applied for the visas for them. She would lie and say they were educators. They'd bring them in. And like you said, you would try to teach children these people around toddlers. It's really scary stuff. And a lot of people don't even know about that aspect of it.
Well, NXIVM had 11 daycare centers all over the world. And in fact, one of the things that Kirsten Gillibrand's father did as a broker to Democrat politicians was help them get licenses for their schools, because they were running and operating schools and daycare centers. So, the number of children who have been, subjected to this is stunning. And you have to look at the root issue here. The root issue is satanic Luciferianism. Keith Raniere on video said, "I am just a demon." Keith Raniere identified himself as Lucifer. He identified with Lucifer. I believe that Claire Bronfman thought that Keith Raniere was actually the manifestation of Satan on this planet, and that's how he convinced her to give him all of this money. He wanted his branding rituals, where he was branding these women to emulate satanic sacrifice ceremonies. There have been women who have died after being part of the NXIVM sex cult. More of this is going to come out. More charges are expected against Claire Bronfman, and not only that, but the Trump administration, Department of Justice, is now seizing all assets and property from the NXIVM cult to use potentially in future cases. And so we're going to keep watching that. But then, let's keep looking at the connections. The connection to illegal immigration. Keith Raniere is about to be convicted for child sex trafficking from Mexico. He locked a young girl in a room for 2 years after she said in one of these therapy sessions that she was attracted to another man. He locked her in a room for 2 years. And the reason she didn't try to escape is she was so terrified of Border Patrol coming and getting her and knowing that she was an illegal alien, because the Democrat fear-mongering scare tactics about immigration have convinced her that Border Patrol would be worse for her than Keith Raniere locking her in a room for 2 years.
And by the way, they made good on that promise. In the documents, when she betrayed him and started seeing this other guy, they took her down to the Mexican border. They held her birth certificate over her head, and she was just one of 3 sisters, one of whom was 15 years old, by the way, Mexican nationals. I mean, this runs deep, deep. You're talking about all sorts of charges that should have been brought. Right now, he's on the hook on this one. I hope you're right. I hope that they're going to do more investigations. They absolutely need to, because while we talk about Mexican nationals, I'd like to get your take on Emiliano Salinas and his connection to being, hey, I'm the ex-president's son, Carlos Salinas' son. I'm wearing green shirts. I'm obviously a huge part of this operation. And some of these women were related to him as well, right?
Well, it's now been reported that Claire Bronfman, the new charges against her are probably going to include visa fraud, because they were giving fake IDs to these child sex slaves after illegally importing them from Mexico. Now, I knew I had this case locked down a few months ago when I found out that the land on which Veterans on Patrol found a child's skull and a human trafficking bunker with child's toys and, blood-stained child's clothes, wigs for children, all kinds of horrible things. This bunker was found on land that was owned by Cemex. Now, Cemex is owned by Bronfman E.L. Rothschild, which is a firm chaired by Claire Bronfman's brother, Matthew Bronfman. So they own the land as well. And so you start looking at the full scope of human trafficking and why the Democrats really don't want a wall on the southern border, why they do want, these young girls to continue to be pumped into this country, bound and gagged in the back of vans, because they are being used in these ceremonies. They obviously were being used in upstate New York by Keith Raniere, by a satanic cult. And so, the depth of evil here is really unprecedented.
And you know what? I want to talk about 2 of those women that are no longer with us that were part of NXIVM that you alluded to earlier. Gina Hutchinson is one of them. She was 15 years old, having a sexual relationship with Raniere, supposedly committed suicide. And then you have Pamela Kafritz, who has this astute family out of D.C., these socialites. She dies overseas, apparently of cancer. They do no autopsy. I believe she was cremated. And during this period when she's gone, Raniere is actually using her credit cards and taking out money from the accounts. I mean, what is your take on those women?
My take is that, the prosecution felt that they had a slam dunk case on child trafficking, and so they didn't touch on the murder aspect of it in this case. However, there are going to be more cases. And so if you look at what's really going on with the Mexican illegal immigration, Emiliano Salinas, son of a former Mexican president. You have Rosa Laura Junco, the daughter of the Rupert Murdoch of Mexico, the most prominent newspaper publisher in Mexico, who publishes the left-wing Reforma newspaper in Mexico City. I mean, these are the biggest elites in Mexico, and you have the biggest elites in the United States coordinating on a child trafficking operation. This is the dirty secret. This is what they have been trying to cover up ever since the spirit cooking emails came out at the end of the 2016 election. That is the reason they are censoring people on the internet. That is the reason they're throwing disinformation at us. That's the reason they're trying to pretend that the emails were a Russia hack and they weaponized Robert Mueller against us. Everything is about covering up what they can't cover up anymore, because it's all coming out. thanks in large part to the Trump Department of Justice, really, prosecuting this case. They didn't have to prosecute this case. They did under Attorney General Barr. So things are changing. The paradigm is shifting. And the reason the paradigm is shifting is because people like us and all of our great readers and citizen researchers out there are keeping the heat on the mainstream media, forcing the New York Times to report on this, forcing the New York Post to report on this. And when you have a sensationalistic celebrity sex cult trial at Brooklyn federal court, how can the New York Post not report on that? So the Trump Department of Justice deserves a lot of credit.
Well, I'm glad that this is happening. I will say this. I really hope that you're right about the other trials, because in the very beginning, there were child trafficking and CP charges. They went away. Then in March, they came back very briefly, and then they said, you know what? Other jurisdictions are going to be able to handle this. Wrapping this up, now that we have the jurors deliberating, and this trial is going to come to a close, I don't think it's going to be any doubt they're going to find him guilty. But what is sentencing going to look like?
I predict he's going to get a lengthy prison sentence for child trafficking. And then the question is, what is he going to try to do to get out of prison early? Is he going to flip on others? One of the big things about this case is, they didn't offer him a plea deal, so he doubled down. And that's, the Democrats hate Keith Raniere right now. I mean, they hate him because all of this stuff has now been exposed at the trial. So going forward, I mean, if Keith Raniere is convicted of child trafficking, that establishes a major precedent whereby, all the other, threads in this network can start being pulled on. And I know some people get frustrated about the amount of time it's taken to get here, but I think we should all be joyous, really, and celebrate the fact that we're here now because, Trump has, cleaned up the top of the Department of Justice with William Barr, and William Barr has shown a willingness to go after this. And human trafficking is the big issue. This is the big unspoken issue that the fake media and the Democrats just don't want to touch. It's like the third rail of everything that's going on, and it connects to the border, it connects to the wall, it connects to everything. And now is the moment, finally, where the truth is shining and dark is turning into light.
All right, Patrick. Well, do you have anything else to say? Because that's a pretty good wrap-up, my friend. I want to let people know, obviously, they can see your work on the regular over at Big League Politics. Is there anything else we need to know about this case we need to do in retrospect? I'll let you close it off.
I think that we definitely need to hold Chuck Schumer, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Hillary Clinton accountable. There's no question about it. They need to answer for this. Kirsten Gillibrand is still running for president, even though my reporting on her has pretty much derailed her campaign. She's still technically running for president. So, I mean, and she's still a senator from New York, by the way. So this is a massive, massive crime, and it's been out in the open. These people have made so many mistakes. So, we're going to keep prosecuting this. We're going to keep investigating this, and I do encourage everyone to watch my show on Patriot Soapbox, live.patriotsoapbox.com on Sunday nights at 6, in which I get into all of this. And I've been doing this show now for 8 weeks. And so I encourage you to watch that on Sunday nights. And, we're not backing down. We're going to keep going because we're on offense now, finally. With Robert Mueller defeated, I think the forces of good are finally on offense.
Well, that's awesome, man, and I hope to have you back here in the future. This has been a great conversation. I'd love to talk Epstein with you. I'd love to talk post-NXIVM with you and a lot of other subjects. Patrick Howley, it's at Howley Reports, I believe, on Twitter?
Yep.
All right, thank you, sir, and I really appreciate it. I'm going to say goodbye to my audience. Thanks again. Guys, what a great interview. If you like interviews like that one, if you care about real news, if you care about breaking news, there it is. So yes, this woman was absolutely looking into trafficking. He doesn't seem to be convinced that the woman they have in custody and are charging with her murder is absolutely responsible. He claims that several different women have contacted them and said that she was working with them to expose trafficking. Linda CollinsSmith. You heard it here first, folks, because we're doing real news. This is the real deal. This is video number 3 of the day. We're going to try to get 4, 5, 6, 7 out there. We'll see. We did 5 yesterday. I got to GoFundMe. That's how we're doing this thing. All of my videos today have already been demonetized. If you don't think that conversation is getting demonetized, it is. If you appreciate real news, real reporting, stuff that's breaking, stuff that's not being touched anywhere else. It's in the description. I just put it over here in the chat room. I really do appreciate it. If you're new to this information and have never been to the channel before, what are you waiting for? Join the Burmis Brigade. Hit that subscribe button. We're doing all sorts of news about all sorts of issues, from Bohemian Grove to DARPA to Assange to Iran. We don't shy away. It's not about left or right here. I promise you that. And believe me, I know there was a lot of anti-Democrat and left spin there a little bit, but I think he did a really good job. And later on, I would challenge him on some of those points, especially in the Epstein case. So we'll see how far that gets. Guys, hit that sub button. And again, we got the GoFundMe to try to, bring this Burmis Brigade thing a little bit further. I really do appreciate it. I'm out on my own in the mean streets of the internet. I'll see you guys on the flip side.